Security forces and supporters of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro clashed outside the National Congress building in the capital, Brasilia.
Destroyed furniture, electronics, and paper sheets cover the floors inside Planalto Presidential Palace after Bolsonaro supporters stormed the building. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Malacanang confirms resignation of Defense OIC and Senior Undersecretary Jose Faustino Jr. Major round of oil price rollback set tomorrow, January 10. Kevin McCarthy wins U.S. House Speaker bid. Top official says almost 90% of people in Henan, China has COVID. And President Joe Biden visits U.S.-Mexico border town. Malacanang confirmed the resignation of Defense Officer in Charge Senior Undersecretary Jose Faustino Jr. In a statement, Presidential Communications Office OIC Cheloy Garafil said the President accepted with deep regret Faustino's resignation. Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation and Unity, Secretary Carlito Galvez will replace Faustino as Defense Chief. Malacanang has yet to disclose details of Faustino's resignation. Galvez, on the other hand, was a retired general of the Philippine Army and also served as Defense Secretary under former President Rodrigo Duterte. Galvez acted as vaccine czar and chief implementer of the National Task Force on COVID-19 at the height of the pandemic.
Rumors of destabilization among the ranks of the armed forces of the Philippines may have basis after all. Here's Mean Corvera for the details.
Senator Amy Marcos is convinced there is basis on reports of destabilization among the ranks of the armed forces of the Philippines. Marcos said she hopes the rumors are just fake news, but oftentimes when there's smoke, there is fire. The presidential sister appealed to the uniformed personnel to resolve their concerns in a peaceful manner and consult all affected parties.
Ang totoo, where there's smoke, there's fire. Kaya kinakailangan yata na mag-usap-usap ang lahat. Dahil alam natin, every time there's a new bill, there's a need to reassess, there's a need to convene and consult all the concerned stakeholders. And that doesn't only go for the military, but for everyone. Marami kasing pagbabago ang sinimulan ni Presidente Duterte, tinutuloy ng aking kapatid, kinakailangan suriin ng maigi at konsultahin lahat ng matatamaan, kung meron man.
The senator said there would be concern with the new law giving 3-year term limits to the AFP Chief of Staff, which started under the Duterte administration. As provided the Republic Act 11709, the 8 top officials of the AFP would have a fixed term of 3 years, to include the AFP Chief of Staff, the commanders of the Philippine Army, Air Force, and the Philippine Navy. Marcos said there are officials affected by the new law and was not agreeable with the new leadership.
Ngayon, nagkakaroon ng birth pains, ika nga, nag-a-adjust tayo. Sana mapag-usapan ng maigi, ng lahat ng sektor, ng lahat ng pangkat, para walang alinlangan at walang pilitang pagre-resign o pagtatanggal.
Currently, General Andres Centino replaced Lieutenant General Bartolome Bacaro as AFP Chief of Staff. Bacaro acted as AFP Chief of Staff for more than 6 months. Rumors of destabilization stemmed from alleged disappointments with the AFP chief replacement, but the military has already denied such rumors. The Senate has pending proposal, while the House of Representatives already passed the proposed amendment to the new law. Senator Christopher Bongo said they would review the need to amend newly approved law. The approved version in the lower chamber states that the law should be amended since 3 years is too long for the term of the AFP Chief of Staff.
Isa yata sa priority bill na tatalakayin ngayong upon na resumption ng Congress ay itong yung fixed term. Pag-aaralan ng mabuti. Ako po ay sasali sa pag-aaral dyan bilang Vice Chair po ng Committee sa Defense sa Senado.
Mayan Corvera, for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
More than 500 police generals and full colonels submitted their courtesy resignations as part of the Philippine National Police, or PNP's internal cleansing program. PNP Chief Rodolfo Azurin once again challenged third-level officials to submit their courtesy resignations to prove they are clean. Paulo Ramos has the details.
There is no need to conduct loyalty check among the ranks of the Philippine National Police, or PNP, following messages spreading from alleged innocent third-level officers who are against the submission of courtesy resignations by all generals and full colonels as part of the force's internal cleansing. PNP Chief Police General Rodolfo Azurin believes that a majority in the force is supportive of the Marcos administration's program. But the PNP Intelligence Unit is currently probing who are behind the spread of a text message threatening to file administrative charges.
So, if they are truly innocent, I think there's no reason for them to hide under the third level innocent na tag. Sabi ko nga, everyone is being challenged to submit their courtesy resignation. So it's a voluntary in nature, and this is an individual test of the individual character. We are not bringing down the house. Ang ginagawa natin is ongoing investigations dun sa mga suspected na mga officers involved in the illegal drug trade. And parallel to that, we wanted na itong mga third-level officers natin ay maklear sila because sooner or later they will be occupying key positions in the PNP.
Currently, more than 500 officers have submitted their courtesy resignations out of the 956 third-level officers of the PNP. The 5-man ad hoc committee that includes Baguio City Mayor and retired Police General Benjamin Magalong will filter the resignations.
If you are confident that you will be cleared, so why don't you submit yung courtesy resignation? Para, sabi ko nga, is once and for all, magkaroon na ng closure ito. Hindi pwedeng maya't maya mo, yan ang isisingil sa'yo, lumalabang ka na ng 3-star position or chief PNP, biglang kakalkalin yung mga record mo nung kapitan ka. These are unfair to our officers. And alam ko na it happened and it's happening in the past. Nakakalkalin yung So, na-promote na siya na general, na-promote na siya na colonel. Bakit mo babalikan yung kanyang record nung siya ay tiniente, nung siya ay kapitan? So these are the things that we really need to iron out, na itigil na natin ito, yung ganitong mga mudslinging, because lahat naman tayo ay gustong magserbisyo sa PNP.
Azurin is confident that the 5-man committee will be fair in their process and their judgment.
We are talking here of the career of senior officers ng Philippine National Police who worked very hard in the last 30 years or more of their service. That's why they also need a fair balance, as well as sabi natin na kailangan ay patas, walang politika rito, walang yung kung ano man yung mga previous na mga kung may kagalit man sila dun sa 5-man committee na mapipili. So ilagay lang nila ng maayos, because we are talking here of the careers of our officers who are the future leaders of the Philippine National Police.
General Azurin said those who will be proven involved in the illegal drug trade will not be given graceful exit. They will be charged criminally, and their benefits will be on hold until after the court would render its decision. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Oil companies announced another rollback of prices of petroleum products this January. Pilipinas Shell, Sea Oil Philippines, and Petrogas said the rollback will be effective on Tuesday, January 10 at 6 o'clock in the morning. 75 centavos will be reduced in prices of gasoline per liter. 2 pesos and 80 centavos per liter will be deducted in diesel, and 2 pesos and 10 centavos per liter of kerosene. Clean Fuel will impose the same reduced prices of its gasoline and diesel by 8:01 in the morning. Other oil companies are expected to impose price adjustments by 6 o'clock in the morning, and this is the second price adjustment on pump prices for the new year.
The Philippines was placed on high alert after cases of COVID-19 have increased. This in the wake of China reopening its borders yesterday after abandoning its zero-COVID policy. Some health experts have warned that a new variant of COVID-19 could spread to 29 countries, triggered by a new case of Omicron sublineage XBB 1.5. That is considered the most infectious virus in the entire world. Department of Health Officer in charge Maria Rosario Vergeire says they strictly monitor the arrival of travelers from other countries, including those from China.
The country's nationwide COVID-19 positivity rate dropped to 5.7% in January. Based on the monitoring of independent Octa research group, Octa fellow Dr. Guido David said the number is lower compared to the 5.9% recorded in January 6. In the past 14 days, the National Capital Region logged the highest number of new cases with 2,359. It was followed by Calabarzon with 1,187 new cases, Central Luzon with 562, Western Visayas with 341, and Cagayan Valley with 325 cases.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said he expects better days ahead as he vowed to continue to invest in projects to improve the country's transportation system. Here's Eden Santos for the details.
The Marcos administration will pursue projects to improve the country's transportation system, scoring its importance to economic development and job generation. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. graced this morning's launching of the Metro Manila Subway Project tunnel boring machine in Valenzuela City.
At the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations to the Department of Transportation and the Metro Manila Subway Project.
During his address, President Marcos vowed to sustain implementation of big-ticket infrastructure projects initiated by the previous administration. He promised to also build better and more infrastructure. Marcos said he is looking forward to better days ahead in the country's public transportation system.
We will continue to invest and improve on our transportation systems as well as to pursue more projects in the years to come so that Filipinos can gain greater access to places of work, commerce, recreation, and other vital areas. Having an effective and efficient transportation system will have multiplier effects on employment, the economy, our society. It will bring comfort, convenience, an easier life for all.
President Marcos expressed gratitude to the Department of Transportation, its private partners, and those who worked hard to ensure the realization of the country's first subway system project. He thanked the government of Japan and the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, for being the country's active partners in the fulfillment of its infrastructure programs. Marcos noted that the tunnel boring machine highlights Japan's expertise in technology and trailblazing contributions in the modern world. Japan has helped the Philippines shape its railway infrastructure to be at par with the highest international standards. The chief executive acknowledged the joint venture of Filipino and Japanese companies for working with the Philippine government on the MMSP's Contract Package 101.
I hope that both of you and the DOTR will not waver on your commitment to finish the contract package by the end of 2027 to ensure that Filipinos will get to enjoy the project at the soonest possible time.
Marcos asked for the public's continued patience, trust, and support for the government since big-ticket projects take years to complete. Once operational, the Metro Manila subway will have 17 stations connecting Valenzuela City to Pasay City and is expected to serve more than 500,000 passengers daily. Eden Santos for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has appointed another commissioner for the Commission on Human Rights, or CHR. Attorney Faida Dumarpa was chosen in an appointment paper signed by the president last December 28, 2022. Dumarpa served as a political affairs officer in the House of Representatives for 9 years. She also served as a legislative officer back in 2012 and received a supervising role in 2013. The sixth CHR commissioner is the daughter of former Representative Faisa Rahman Dumarpa of Llano del Sur, 1st District, and former Commissioner Salik Biston of the National Labor Relations Commission. The CHR says the constitutional body has or still has 2 vacancies for commissioners. Coming right up. 4 days and 15, or after 4 days and 15 votes later, Kevin McCarthy finally wins U.S. House Speaker position. A top official says 90% of people in a China province are infected with COVID. And U.S. President Joe Biden visits border city before heading to the North American Leaders Summit in Mexico. Matanang Agila International will be right back after the short break. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
The news continues here on Matanang Agila International. Kevin McCarthy has been named the new Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives on Saturday. The election ended days of bitter Republican infighting that grounded the lower chamber of Congress to a standstill. The House Speaker presides over House business and is second in line to the presidency. The 57-year-old Californian needed a simple majority to be elected as Washington's top legislator. It became the longest speakership election in 160 years, ending days of Republican dispute. The deeply divided Republicans took 15 rounds of voting over 4 days to fend off a right-wing anti-McCarthy rebellion.
U.S. President Joe Biden awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal to 14 officers and public servants. President Biden said 2 years ago in January 6, America's democracy was attacked. For the first time in his presidency, President Biden bestowed one of the nation's highest civilian honors. The Presidential Citizens Medal recognizes citizens of the United States of America who have performed exemplary deeds of service for their country or their fellow citizens. The president says the country is indebted to the awardees.
America owes you all. I really mean this. A debt of gratitude, one we can never fully repay unless we live up to what you did. Live up to what you did. And what you did was truly consequential.
A horrific bus crash in the West African country of Senegal leaves 40 people dead and another 85 injured. The accident happened early Sunday morning in the country's central region when two buses collided head-on. Early investigations suggest a tire blew out on one of the buses, causing it to swerve into the path of an oncoming vehicle. The government announces 3 days of mourning beginning today. Flags across the country will be flown at half-mast. Road accidents are common in Senegal. Driver error, poor roads, and badly maintained vehicles are the main causes.
A top China official says almost 90% of people in the country's third most populous province have been infected with COVID-19. The director of the Health Commission for Central Henan reports the province's COVID infection rate is 89%, or about 88.5 million people in Henan. The director adds that visits to fever clinics peaked in on December 19 and have shown a downtrend. With the Lunar New Year nearing, infections are expected to soar. The country expects millions of travelers to travel from big cities to visit vulnerable older relatives in the countryside.
Lots of smiles and hugs brighten China's international airports on Sunday. The country ends quarantine requirements for inbound travelers for the first time in nearly 3 years. Friends and family members embrace each other in arrival halls at the airports. Last month, China began dismantling its zero-COVID strategy that had mandatory quarantines and punishing lockdowns. Since then, the country is grappling with a surge in COVID cases. The change also means Chinese residents can travel abroad without having to face isolation when they return. While China has eased travel requirements, more than a dozen countries have imposed mandatory COVID tests on travelers from China. China's COVID outbreak is forecast to worsen as it enters the Lunar New Year holiday this month. Millions are expected to travel from hard-hit megacities to the countryside to visit vulnerable older relatives.
Iran has sentenced to death 3 people accused of killing 3 security force members during protests. Since September 16 last year, the Islamic Republic has been rocked by civil unrest due to the death of Kurdish-Iranian Mahsa Amini, who was arrested for allegedly violating Iran's strict dress code for women. After more than 3 months of protests, the latest sentences bring the total count of those condemned to death to 17. The judiciary's Mizan online news website report says Saleh Mir Hashemi, Majid Kazemi, and Saeed Yaghubi are sentenced to death on charges of moharebe, or waging war against God. The website confirmed the sentences can be appealed before the Supreme Court.
Israelis took to the streets to protest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's new government. Protesters regard it as the most right-wing in the country's history. Protesters brandished signs that read "Democracy in Danger" and "Together Against Fascism and Apartheid." Netanyahu took office late last month to lead a coalition of extreme right and ultra-Orthodox Jewish parties. His cabinet includes a politician who has admitted tax evasion. Another member once kept a portrait in his home of a man who massacred scores of Palestinian worshippers. Netanyahu, who is 73, is fighting corruption charges in court. He served as Israel's premier from 1996 to 1999 and again from 2009 to 2021.
In Brazil, supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro stormed Congress, the presidential palace, and the Supreme Court. President Luis Inacio Lula da Silva condemned the rioting as a fascist attack. Security forces regained control of the Congress building after several hours on Sunday. They pushed back the protesters with water cannons and tear gas bombs fired from helicopters. The rioters want a review of what they call a fraudulent election last fall when Lula defeated Bolsonaro. Social media footage shows rioters breaking doors and windows to enter Congress. Once inside, they trashed lawmakers' offices and entered the legislative chamber. The attack is reminiscent of the January 6, 2021 invasion of the U.S. Congress by supporters of then-President Donald Trump. There was a swift international reaction condemning the protesters. U.S. President Joe Biden slammed the attack as outrageous. The European Council gave a similar reaction.
In related news, China says it firmly opposes the violent attack on government buildings in the Brazilian capital after hundreds of supporters of ex-President Jair Bolsonaro stormed the country's Congress, the presidential palace, and the Supreme Court. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin says China is closely monitoring or following the violent attacks on January 8. Wenbin stressed Brazil is China's comprehensive strategic partner. China supports the measures taken by the Brazilian government to calm the situation, restore social order, and protect national stability. The spokesman says they believe that through President Lula's leadership, Brazil can maintain social harmony.
U.S. President Joe Biden made a quick visit to an American border city before flying to Mexico. Mexico is hosting the North American Leaders Summit on January 9 and 10. Biden spent several hours in El Paso, Texas, a city feeling the brunt of illegal immigration. The president met with U.S. border officials. He inspected the tall fencing between El Paso and the city of Juarez on the Mexican side of the border. He also visited a migrant support center. The U.S. president is under huge political pressure to handle the spiraling number of illegal border crossings. There has been an influx of asylum applications by people making perilous journeys from Latin American countries. Adding to a crisis is a surge in cross-border smuggling of narcotics. Biden will meet with Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for the next 2 days in Mexico City.
U.S. President Joe Biden did not receive a warm welcome in El Paso, Texas. Take a look. This is the scene that greeted Biden on his first political visit to Border City. Hundreds of protesters march on the streets of El Paso. The group also caught up with around 300 migrants. Together, they sang Los Buenos Somos Más, or the good ones outnumber the bad ones. Local reports say many protesters are afraid to seek more formal shelter due to new immigration policies. Last week, Biden declared that Cubans, Nicaraguans, Haitians, and Venezuelans will be expelled to Mexico if they enter the U.S. illegally.
Up next, after a grueling trip, nearly 200 Rohingya refugees land in Indonesia. Methanization farmers face soaring energy prices. And a 6-year-old boy shoots and critically injures his teacher in the U.S. Find out more about these stories when Mata ng Agila International returns.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, every Sunday, 9 p.m. Mga ka-Net 25, nakapag-selfie ka ba kasama ang Net 25 Agila? Tumutok sa Net 25 at abangan ang announcement namin ng mga nanalo ng 5 iPhones, 3 100,000 pesos, 5 50,000 pesos, 10 25,000 pesos, 5 iPad at 3 winners ng brand new car. Baka ikaw na isa sa mga winners. Let's net together in 2023 sa Net 25.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
Severe rainstorms left thousands of homes and businesses without power in California early Sunday. Data from PowerOutage.us reports more than 560,000 homes are still without power. News sources say at least 6 people have died in the severe weather, including a toddler killed by a fallen tree. Forecasters warn the public that another atmospheric river of dense, humid tropical air will clobber California on Monday with rain and mountain snow. Scientists say global warming has caused severe weather disturbances all over the world. The World Resources Institute reports greenhouse gas emissions from the United States count for 12.67% of all global emissions. 5 Asian nations, China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Indonesia, contribute to 3 times as much, or 39.2% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. A report says over 57 million people were affected by climate disasters in Asia, with growing risks each year. Last year, severe tropical storms hit the Philippines. Thousands of homes and infrastructures were destroyed and many lives lost.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for massive investments to help Pakistan recover from last year's devastating floods. The country was doubly victimized by climate change and a morally bankrupt global financial system. In an international resilience to climate change conference in Geneva, the UN chief sought donors for billions of dollars needed to support the flood-hit country. Guterres says no country deserves to endure what Pakistan experienced. He urged the dignitaries to take part in the heroic response for Pakistan's people to strengthen their future communities. He estimates that rebuilding Pakistan in a resilient way will cost more than $16 billion. Even more funds are needed for the country's long-term recovery.
The MV Glory cargo ship was floating in shallow water in the Suez Canal Monday. The vessel is carrying 65,000 metric tons of Ukraine corn. Officials from Leth agencies say tugboats successfully refloated the ship. Preliminary reports say the cargo's motor malfunctioned during its transit through the canal. Authorities assure that the MV Glory will be escorted on its way out by several canal guides. They confirm the cargo ship is bound for China. Meanwhile, Suez Canal authorities insist the recent grounding would not impact business traffics on the canal. The brief stranding revived memories of when the Ever Given ship blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days in March 2021 and created a regional shipping crisis. The canal has since been expanded.
Malaysia's new Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim met with Indonesian President Joko Widodo on Monday. It was his first foreign trip after winning a confidence vote and cementing his mandate last month following an inconclusive election. The two leaders held talks at the presidential palace in Bogor, south of the capital, Jakarta. Ibrahim thanked Widodo for his support after the election. Widodo said the world's 2 biggest exporters of palm oil would boost cooperation on the commodity and work together to battle discrimination against the sector. Environmentalists say the production of palm oil is stoking deforestation in both countries. The European Union last month agreed on a new law preventing companies from selling products linked to deforestation. The Indonesian leader also lauded the interest of Malaysian companies in investing in the country's new capital, Nusantara, which is scheduled to open on the island of Borneo next year. Ahead of the talks, Widodo greeted Anwar before driving him around the palace's gardens in an electric buggy. The pair discussed issues including trade, border disputes, and the situation in coup-hit Myanmar.
A wooden boat carrying nearly 200 Rohingya refugees landed on Indonesia's western coast Sunday. The majority of those aboard the vessel were women and children. They came from Myanmar, where Muslim Rohingya are heavily persecuted. Officials say most of those aboard the ship are healthy. They will be taken to a local government facility. This is the fifth boat carrying refugees to land in Indonesia since November. Thousands of people every year risk a long, dangerous, and expensive sea journey to escape persecution. An estimated 200 Rohingya have died or are missing after attempting sea crossings last year.
The crippling inflation impacts households across the globe. So we asked some of our friends in the U.S. and Canada about things that they can do this year to deal with the rising cost of everything. Many of them say scrimping a little here and there goes a long way. Take a look.
This year, because of the inflation, I will not buy gadgets like phones or laptops.
Amid the serious global inflation, the top 3 things I would avoid spending on this year would be a gym membership, a TV or online streaming subscription, and impulse buying online.
The 3 things I'm going to avoid spending on during this inflation period would probably be eating out, traveling, and excessive just eating junk food.
This year I want to spend less money on gas and decrease where I'm driving to. I also want to spend less money on eating out, going to restaurants and things, as well as cosmetics and unnecessary needs like pedicures and manicures.
Okay, so the 3 things that I would avoid shopping or spending in the year of 2023 are those expensive pocketbooks that I have a crazy fetish for, paying my children bills when they work every day just like me, and buying those stinking cigarettes that I no longer smoke. So that will help me to save some money in 2023.
With serious global inflation, the top 3 things that I would probably cut back on with my family would be entertainment, groceries, and self-care. With entertainment more specifically, it would probably be like eating out, going out, probably trying to connect more with nature, cooking more at home, which leads to my second top item, which is groceries, like cooking more at home, going around the table, and self-care, because maybe I can do my own manicure and pedicure, maybe find creative ways to cut my own hair, things like that. So those are my top 3.
My top 3 things that I need to be more mindful for this new year are I need to create a list for my groceries and really budget my money and be more thoughtful and only buy the things that are essential and that I need. Also, to cut back on purchasing clothes. I feel like with fashion, we also recycle styles. So I feel like we can be more, or I can be more creative on how I can put my clothes together. And lastly, I feel like electricity. So that's an ongoing practice that we all wanted to do, that when we're not in the room, turn off the lights. Even electronics at night, or when you travel, turn off everything, or even unplug the electronics that you have. So those are my top 3 things.
Although more and more farmers in France are tempted to use methanization to generate new income, the economic situation and soaring price of energy threaten the development of the sector. Methanization is the use of waste to produce gas. Francois Trubert of the Association of Methanizers from Brittany says methanization is about 10 years old now. Trubert says it has matured and evolved. However, he says there are quite a few parameters that make it falter. He mentioned several challenges the industry faces: the enormous construction costs, energy costs to make the installation work, electricity costs, and gas buyback, which he says are not up to the current market.
Raw milk cheese makers in the U.S. face one main obstacle. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, requires raw milk cheeses to be aged at least 60 days. Kat Feet of Meadow Creek Dairy says this requirement is something that they have to build their cheeses around. Feet says that there are certain cheeses that are unpasteurized in Europe that they simply cannot even look at because they're so young.
It can be frustrating that there are certain types of cheeses we can't do. The small format cheeses especially, you know, they have a lot of market appeal. A lot of people would love to have a raw milk brie or something small like that over here, but it's simply not viable. But, you know, it's always the same. With anything, there's going to be limitations to what you can and you can't do. And it's easier to just accept those limitations and kind of work with them than try and fight your way uphill against that. Those cheeses back there are just from last week, so they're only a few days old. And then we work it up through here. And these...
Mountains of the eastern U.S., Meadow Creek Dairy is not like other American cheese makers. Its products are made from unpasteurized milk. The small family business is a rarity in a U.S. market dominated by big industrial cheesemakers exclusively using pasteurized milk.
There really wasn't much, and we were very interested in aging our cheese, especially since we had to go at least 60 days, and it was difficult to find a small-scale model here to learn from. And so we started going to Europe, and we went 4 or 5 years in a row to try and get down how we wanted to build a cellar. You know, there was nothing here, how to get that humidity that we needed, how to get those conditions, and it changed me radically, and especially tasting all those cheeses. I was like, okay, I can do this one day.
A 6-year-old boy opened fire in an elementary school classroom in the eastern U.S. state of Virginia, seriously injuring a teacher. No students were hurt in the incident at Rich Neck Elementary School in the coastal city of Newport News. Local Police Chief Steve Drew says the individual is a 6-year-old student. He is now in police custody. Drew says it is not an accidental shooting. Police say the victim is a teacher in her 30s. Her injuries are believed to be life-threatening. Shocked and disheartened, the city's superintendent of schools, George Parker, says the community's support is needed to make sure that guns are not available to youth. School shootings plague the U.S. with recent tragedies, including the killing last May of 19 children and 2 teachers in Uvalde, Texas, by an 18-year-old gunman.
Coming up, Adidas sues American fashion designer Thom Browne for copying its trademark stripes. Naomi Osaka will skip the Australian Open, fueling concerns for her tennis future. And Princess Diana's iconic purple gown to be auctioned off. Catch more global news when Matanong Agila International returns.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Ay lalabas natin ang angking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Sa Counterpoint, kasama ni Atty. Sal Panelo, ang mayor ng San Manuel Tarlac, Mayor Doña Tesoro.
Never ko naisip yung showbiz kasi talagang mahal na mahal ko yung public service eh. Actually, nagkakaroon ako ng mga offers in the past, pero ayokong matag as a celebrity politician eh.
Sa Counterpoint, tuwing Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
Si Mayor, saludo tayo dyan. Thumbs up.
Hindi tumibok ang iyong puso.
Thumbs up.
Okay, thumbs up. Parang nakilala ko na yung boyfriend mo, si Mark. Di ba si Mark ang boyfriend mo?
Sino Mark?
O si Sunny?
Sino si Sunny? Oy!
We welcome you back with more global news here on Mata ng Agila International. Virtual assistants enter data, manage email, handle customer support, create invoices, run presentations, and bolster social media platforms. Business owners say their virtual assistants or VAs help them significantly grow their income. VAs praise the flexibility and progressive mode of payment. There are also downsides. Some VAs cite a lack of benefits, uncertainty of schedule, and grueling hours. But the Philippines ranked highly in the 2021 Kearney Global Services Location Index. The study assesses a country's ability to deliver digital services. Another business report says VA activity is a popular subsector of the Philippines business process outsourcing or BPO industry, estimated at $29.5 billion. Sources say many Westerners prefer to hire VAs in the Philippines. These entrepreneurs say Filipino VAs are honest, respectful, family-oriented, loyal, hardworking, and talented. They also say Filipinos communicate well in English. Ranking highly on the business index means business owners around the world recognize the Philippines as an excellent outsourcing destination for virtual assistants.
Adidas and American fashion designer Thom Browne face off in court over trademark and dilution complaints. Adidas argues that despite knowledge of its rights in the famous three-stripe mark, Browne expanded its product offerings. The sports brand claims Browne is selling athletic-style apparel and footwear featuring 2, 3, or 4 parallel stripes in a manner that is confusingly similar to Adidas three-stripe mark. Adidas says they spoke to Browne in 2007 when he first began applying the parallel pattern to varsity clothing. Browne's legal team insists they weren't contacted until 2008, and they conceded to alter their graphic to 4 stripes to avoid further conflict. However, Adidas asserts Browne is profiting from the familiarity of its branding. It claims Browne is irreparably harming Adidas brand as his designs could potentially cause consumer confusion and deceive the public. Adidas is suing for $867,225 in damages for what would have been licensing fees and an additional $7 million in profits Browne allegedly made. Browne's lawyers insist they are using 4 horizontal bars and not 3 stripes. They maintain consumers won't be confused by the design's alleged similarities. The tense trial between Adidas and Browne is expected to conclude in 2 weeks.
Microsoft support says Windows 8.1 support will end on January 10. The tech giant reminds its customers to upgrade to a newer version of the operating system as soon as possible. It says Windows 8.1 users must upgrade to Windows 11, which essentially means having to buy a new computer since Windows 11 system requirements prevent the operating system from running on Windows 8.1 era devices. Microsoft says they will not be offering an extended security update program for Windows 8.1 since it may increase the organization's exposure to security risks or impact its ability to meet compliance obligations.
The European Central Bank, or ECB, predicts that the Eurozone will experience very strong growth in wages in the next months. It says salaries will catch up with galloping inflation. The ECB says wage growth over the next few quarters is expected to be very strong compared with historical patterns. The authors forecasted some catch-up between wages and high rates of inflation experienced since 2021 in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. In December, the ECB predicted wages would rise by 5.2% in 2023 after having already grown 4.5% in 2022. In the longer term, the ECB indicates wage growth would face further barriers, such as the expected economic slowdown in the euro area and uncertainty about the economic outlook, mainly due to the ongoing war in Ukraine.
Great action in England's oldest football cup competition, the Football Association Challenge Cup, or the FA Cup, as major teams were knocked out. From the UK, here's Keith Di Mabuyu.
Premier League high flyers Newcastle suffered a shock FA Cup exit against third-tier Sheffield Wednesday, while top-flight strugglers Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth were also dumped out by lower league opposition on Saturday. But it was Sheffield Wednesday who stole the show with their impressive 2-1 victory at Hillsborough against a Newcastle team sitting in third place in the Premier League. On a day of shocks that showed the FA Cup can still thrill despite its diminished status, National League Wrexham enjoyed one of the more memorable results in the competition's recent history. Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, the two Hollywood actors who co-own Wrexham, led the celebrations on social media after their non-league side's surprise 4-3 victory at second-tier Coventry. Elsewhere, on a hectic day of third-round action, Harry Kane moved closer to becoming Tottenham's all-time record goal scorer as he netted in the 1-0 win against Portsmouth. Kane, with 4 goals in 4 matches since missing the penalty against France that led to England's elimination at the World Cup, now has 265 goals for Spurs, just one behind the club's all-time record scorer Jimmy Greaves. From the United Kingdom, this is Keith Di Mabuyu for Metanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Naomi Osaka has not played a tennis match since September. Her withdrawal from next week's Australian Open has raised concerns that the former world #1 may never appear on the court again. On Sunday, Tennis Australia announced through a tweet that the two-peat Melbourne champion would miss the first Grand Slam of the year without stating a reason for her absence. Over the past few months, Osaka's posts showed she traveled to Europe with her boyfriend, the rapper Corday. She also announced that her sports management agency had signed up world #2 Ons Jabeur. With her absence in the Australian Open, fans speculate if her tennis career would end at the age of 25. Meanwhile, the author of Osaka's biography, tennis writer Ben Rothenberg, says he believes the Grand Slam champion already had her meaningful step back from the sport and is deliberately keeping quiet.
The Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, announced the success of the recently held Metro Manila Film Festival, or MMFF. It reached its target gross sales of more than ₱500 million. Because of the success of MMFF, the MMDA has announced there would be a Metro Manila Summer Festival to kick off in April. Nadine Aguilar has the story.
The Metro Manila Film Festival, or MMFF, reached its target gross sales of ₱501 million. Metro Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, and MMFF overall chairman, Attorney Romando Artes, made the announcement.
It's a good day for Philippine cinema. Yung pong ating 2022 Metro Manila Film Festival, nahit po natin yung ating target. Naka ₱501 million po na ticket sales ang Metro Manila Film Festival for 2022.
With the theme, Balik Saya. The 8 films were shown in cinemas nationwide from December 25, 2022 up to January 7, 2023. Screening is now extended until January 13, 2023. The top 4 MMFF official entries based on gross sales receipts are Deleter, Family Matters, Love You with an Accent, and Partners in Crime. Following the success of the MMFF last December, artists announced that MMDA will launch the Metro Manila Summer Film Festival in April.
Kasama namin kanina yung mga representative ng SEAP, Cinema Exhibitors Association of the Philippines. Sila po yung may-ari ng mga sinihan. Sila po yung excited. And kung makikita nyo dito sa logo ng Summer Film Festival na andito po sila. Dahil kung parang co-production ito ng Metro Manila Film Festival at ng SEAP.
In partnership with Cinema Exhibitors Association of the Philippines or CEAP. The Parade of Stars for the MMFF Summer Edition will be held on April 1, while the awards night will take place on April 11. The Metro Manila Summer Film Festival will run for an 11-day period from April 8 to April 18 in cinemas nationwide.
Maganda yung promotions na mauuna for the summer festival and that is through your help. I think at this point, ang mga producers would be more interested to submit na hindi po
Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Princess Diana remains a pop culture icon. Her red carpet outings, soft makeup, and style choices are remembered and often imitated. One of Diana's most iconic dresses, the aubergine silk velvet piece, is set to go up for auction on January 27. Sotheby's auction says the dress is expected to fetch up to $120,000. The strapless style features a sculptural sweetheart neckline and tulip skirt. It was designed by Victor Jan as part of his fall or 1989 fall collection. It was last sold in 1997 at a Christie's charity auction with 79 dresses donated by Diana for $24,150. The late princess wore it for both an official royal portrait in 1991 and an intimate Vanity Fair spread in 1997, shortly before her death.
Jeremy Renner celebrated his birthday with a message of gratitude to his medical care team. The Hawkeye actor turned 52 last January 7. He continues to recover from injuries sustained in a snowplow accident. Sources say he had at least one surgery and presumably has a long road to recovery. New details about his accident also emerged online. A 911 call log reports an unnamed caller was screaming as they told the dispatcher that Renner had been completely crushed by a snowplow. The dispatcher noted that Renner was moaning loudly and was bleeding heavily. Authorities say the vehicle involved in the incident was a 7-ton piston bully snowplow. Reports say the actor had been using the snowplow to tow another vehicle stuck in the snow. He had apparently climbed out of the piston bully to speak to a family member, but the snowplow started to roll. The sheriff said Renner attempted to climb back into the driver's seat of the plow to stop it from rolling, but was run over. It's Monday, and to help you start the week, here's a quote from Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company. When everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it.
You know, going with the flow sometimes, it limits your growth.
Exactly. You must not be stopped by what seemingly look like a hindrance.
And that is a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.